Hello and welcome to the latest edition of You Should Have Been Here Last Week, the podcast hosted by myself, Steve Gribbin, and fellow comedian Paul Ricketts.
Good morning, it's really hot.
Yes, this is the podcast that lifts the rock on the comedy industry to peer below the seething morass of comedic life writhing beneath the surface. The open micers, the comedy lifers, the sharers and likers, the hitchhikers that make up this biz we call comedy. And today's special guest is writer, stand-up comedian, all-round Canadian, raconteur, bon vivant, the wonderful Mr. David Tsonos. Welcome,
Yay!
David. Good to have you on.
Pleasure to join you.
Yeah.
I was having a look at your website, and one of the things that struck me in your extensive biog was that you say that amongst the foreign countries you've performed at, one of them is Canada, which is your home country,
Yes.
and particularly on today being Canada Day.
That's right. July 1st, Canada Day. Very good, Paul. Nice one. Well, here's the thing. I could see you thinking that would be derivative and stuff like that. Obviously, I have. But there are a few people who started doing comedy here. I believe Tony Law started doing comedy here, and he's never been back to actually perform in Canada or not.
I've heard that only recently, apparently. Yeah.
So, I mean, so maybe, you could have thought I started here, or perhaps, how many years am I here that I consider myself more of a British comic than a Canadian comic too, right?
Okay. Do you feel like that now? Or do you still feel like a Canadian comic over here? Or are you more British now?
I would say that lockdown may be a lot more British because I didn't go back at all in that entire time. So that really kind of just, I stayed here for a long, long time. What's that? Maybe it was even longer than that too, but probably about 3 years of that. So I used to go back and forth a lot more often, but we just stayed here in lockdown. So yeah, I think it really made me I consider myself more of a British comic now coming out of that.
I mean, do you think that you have to go back to Canada, every so often to top up your Canadianness? Is that what you're saying?
It's to visit family, and my mother's in Montreal, so there's a club there called the Comedy Nest, which I usually do when I go back, if I'm going back for a trip to visit my mom, and also to do the club there and stuff like that. Usually, like I said before, but it's been a lot more sporadic since we've come back.
Mm-hmm.
So there is an argument that the Canadians are the best comedians in the world.
Wow.
Mainly based on the fact that the best American comics normally turn out to be Canadian. And that because you have a combination where you seem to tuck into American culture, comedic culture, as well as British culture, I think Canadian comics, they take more risks generally than American comics.
Okay. Yeah. Here's the thing. When I first moved here, there was a very, very good supply of Canadian comics doing very well. Phil Nickel was doing very well. And of course, Catherine Ryan doing very well. Stuart Francis, who I don't think is on the circuit anymore, but when I first got here, he was still doing very, very well for himself.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of a key to that, in which a lot of us are doing comedy for a long time before we move to the UK.
No, that's a phenomenon as well that applies to quite a few Irish comics.
Yeah.
There's a famous story of Ardal O'Hanlon came over here and he was doing competitions and just absolutely smashing the fuck out of it. And people going, Jesus Christ, who is this guy? But he'd been doing comedy for 10 years before in Ireland and he was really good,
Well, it's the same thing with Bobby Mayer.
Yeah.
Bobby Mayer came over here and won every new actor nights and competition going. Because obviously he'd been going for 6-7 years in Canada before he got here.
Yeah, probably about that much. Yeah.
I mean, do you think there's a specific difference between Canadian humour and British humour? Do you think there's anything in that?
It's hard to say because it's such a vast country that I would say city to city is going to be different in Canada.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember. So I first started doing comedy in Vancouver, and Vancouver was and still is very politically correct. It's a very politically correct. We were just doing an open mic somewhere, and we got a complaint because one or two comics made a joke about homeless people, and they were kind of tame jokes. But this is This is 1999. Sorry, it's not 1999. This is, yeah, it would have been about 2000, 2001, 2002, so this is 20 years ago. Whereas in Calgary, it would have been a bit more, that would have been okay to do that kind of humor. And a lot of the punchlines in Alberta would have been a bit more, I don't want to say basic, I don't want to be mean, but would have been a bit more broad.
Right.
And I would even write a few jokes that in Vancouver got a giggle, and I'd go to a different town and would get a huge round of applause. So city by city is very different in Canada. It's so far apart. Vancouver to Montreal is further than London to Moscow.
Wow. What about the Quebec? Is that a sort of different thing in the mix as well?
Yeah, a lot of people, it's a shame because once, you got to remember my knowledge of Canadian comedy is from 10 years ago. So let's start there. Yeah. But a lot of people think that Montreal would be the city to do stand-up in because of the Just for Laughs. Now, 10 years ago, that might have been true, but 2 years ago, they canceled Just for Laughs and it went bankrupt. So that's no longer the case. But yeah, what happens is a lot of Montrealers wait for the festival to go see stand-up. So it struggles the other 50 weeks of the year.
Ah, right, okay.
It really takes away from the regular clubs. Mm-hmm. And that can be a tough town because you're dealing with audience members that sometimes their second language is English.
I mean, have you ever done comedy in French?
Yes, I have. I've tried it. I've tried it a few times.
Yeah.
And this is the worst about it. I'm so paranoid that I'm going to get heckled or someone's going to say something and it's going to take too long to switch the language in my head, or it's going to be a word I'm not familiar with. So I can't do comedy in French. I could deliver a funny speech in French is how I like to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Because one of the things about Canada is yuck-yucks. I've heard from every single Canadian comic that I've ever worked with is their dominance of the live circuit. Is that? I know you haven't been back for X number of years, but is that still a thing? Do you reckon?
So once again, that's city to city. So there is no yuck-yucks in Montreal.
Yeah.
So they don't have any power there. In Ottawa, there's two clubs. There's a Yuck Yucks and there's called Absolute. And Absolute, sorry, Ottawa Yuck Yucks was the better club at the time.
We're going to get lots of angry complaints now.
Yeah, it actually really sucks. The first time I signed, because you have to actually sign with them, you have to become a member of the Yuck Yucks team. And you can't play the other clubs. You can only play Yuck Yucks clubs. So it's like a union is what I would call it.
So like a barring clause as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And actually, you know what? That's all through North America. It's rare. There's a few clubs in the UK that do that, but that's all through North America. Most cities in North America, you can't play both their comedy clubs if they have two. And
wow.
Yeah. But when I signed with Yuck Yucks, there was 16 Yuck Yucks clubs. Mm-hmm. And it was a good time to be with them, and I enjoyed my time with them. But then, your favorite one would close. This other one went down in shows, and then it would go up. It would go up and down and up and down. And like I said, I think lockdown really hurt them. And I think there's a few out there now, but they're not the force they used to be.
Going back to the Just for Laughs thing about that, it's very corporate, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah.
That kind of, because one of my favourite stories, and I don't know whether you've heard this one, is Ross Noble was there once and he was fed up of people because they all walk around with the lanyards. Yeah. He was fed up with people going, hi, and then pointing to the lanyard going, my name is Chuck something from NBC, and he goes, for fuck's sake. He got so fed up and he thought, for fuck's sake. And he went off down the corridor into a hot tub. He thought, they'll never fucking find me here. And a guy got in there and he had a waterproof laminate on. And he just pointed and goes, hi, I'm there was no escape.
Yeah.
So what made you come over here then? I mean, was it did you owe people money? Actually, what's going on?
It's funny you say that. So the first time I came over, I had an ancestry visa. So you have to have a grandparent born in the UK to get that. Oh. And when you apply, you cannot have giant debts. You can't leave the country if you owe a bunch of money. So there you go, Mr. Ricketts.
We had vision of yuck sort of like being like gangsters.
Yeah. So unfortunately, as much as I did enjoy doing comedy in Canada, you reached a certain plateau and there's just nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
It's very, like, I could think of 2 or 3 Canadian comics that do their own tour. There's nothing like the Fringe. There's nothing like that at all there. They have fringes, but they're more theater based. I know like very few stand-up comics who do their own solo show at a Fringe. I think Edmonton has the biggest Fringe, and it's really theater oriented. Maybe you might get some sketch, you might get some improv, but it's barely any stand-up in it. And there's just the opportunity just isn't there to grow at a certain point. And what I find, and if you looked towards the older Canadian comics, is that they got very lazy in their writing. So they would write their headline set and it would work and they would get booked. And there was just no incentive to update it or to change it or to keep it going or anything like that. And I saw myself getting into that. I saw myself going into that direction. So I had to get out of it if I wanted to continue to do stand-up.
I mean, where was your first proper UK comedy gig?
Oh, you're not going to believe it. Everyone knows this gig. It was the first one I did. I just did a spot on, was out in oh damn it! I wish you'd give me some time to remember this now. Stratford. Remember that gig on a Monday night in Stratford?
Stratford, at the Stratford Theatre.
Yes, yeah. And we
An
were
all black audience normally.
Yeah, well, it was a mix, but yeah, sometimes, yeah. Yeah. And the audience has no idea that the show was going on half the time too. That was my first spot. I still remember everybody who's on. They're all still doing comedy. Everyone's doing well too. So yeah, I remember everybody who was on that lineup the first time.
Wow. So I mean, you said that's your first one, but what was your first sort of proper one that you?
The first paid one was for Jeff Whiting. It was for Mirth Control. Yeah. And it was that Thursday in Kent that was famous. What's the name of that? Maidstone, the Thursday night in Maidstone.
Oh God.
Maidstone.
Yeah,
oh my God. We've discussed that gig many times.
Have you? Yeah. That was my first paid one for in the UK.
Because I remember coming across you in the downstairs at the King's Head.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And after you went on, I just told the audience you're not really Canadian. You're from St Albans.
Yeah, that's right.
To which you came up to me and go, "Where the fuck's St Albans?"
Yeah. It was random. Yeah, you're right.
It sounds classier than it is. I ran across you. Well, I met you before, but you remember that gig that we did at the hotel in Brands Hatch?
That's right. Yeah,
the famous Sprung dance floor, where he said, "Can we possibly put because the audience is about 10 miles away," and the guy just went, "Have you any idea how much this cost? It's thousands of pounds." No, and it was like being in a fucking amphitheatre, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh God, so you came over with the express idea of doing comedy. That was your main motivation for coming to the UK.
I actually, you know what? I mean, this is an interesting thing about, I guess, personally. A comedian friend of ours has passed away. His name was Jocko. He was a Montreal comic, and he passed away very young, and it's very sad. He just died. He woke up and he had troubles breathing, and he must have had a heart attack in his sleep. We don't even know exactly what happened to him. And we were all at his funeral. He was in his 40s. And we all had said, if you knew you were gonna go soon, is there anything you regret? And at that time, I had said, I'd never been to Europe. I had never left North America. So when the opportunity to kind of come here for comedy was, and because that was one thing on my head, I've never actually been to Europe before. And a lot of people in my age bracket, a lot of people in their 20s or even late teens packed up and came to Europe, did that 3-month trip where they went all around it. I never did that. So that was, 2 reasons really for comedy. And plus I was just like, geez, why have I never been?
I mean, did you know what the UK comedy circuit was like before? Had you got any idea of what it was like before you actually came here?
I knew bits and pieces of it. And, I knew John Hastings and I knew Bobby Mayer and I knew a couple of the other guys that had come over here and do it. But one thing about it is that I was kind of told it was going to be a lot rougher than it was.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I was told that some of the Canadian guys were doing well because they were used to a bit rougher audiences, and you still have that here. But I mean, that's kind of, I would say, like maybe they're talking Jongleurs back in the day too. You know, like that kind of comedy.
Well, and places like the Comedy Cafe. There's a famous Canadian comedian, Mr. Campbell, who legendarily dived onto a tape. I mean, it could be very rough there at times. Back in the sort of 90s, with all the city workers, they were all drunk, especially on a Friday night. It was horrible. But you know, we talk about this a lot as well, because there was a sense in the early comedy days when I first started that rather than wanting you to do well, the audiences were thinking, "I hope he fucks up."
Yeah.
Which is a very British thing, you know. But I think that has changed.
I don't know. I think in small towns sometimes I do feel that.
Yeah. I hope this next one's shit.
Yeah.
There's as much as in small towns they're pleased to see you turn up.
Yeah.
They sometimes think it'd be even better if you've driven such a long way to die in front of us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, the legendary Malcolm Hardy used to do a really cruel thing when he was introducing acts on. He'd go, got 4 acts tonight. One of them's going to be shit. Which is fucking horrible. If you were the one, if you waited to come, I think, oh God. And then it's in the audience's head, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
I bet one of these is going to be shit. I wonder which one it's going to be. Oh, this one. So you were pleasantly surprised, but when you say rough, do you mean, because I get I have not performed in America, but I've seen a few comic shows in America when I was there, and I was astounded by I mean, there wasn't that much heckling, and it wasn't that rowdy, and it's much rowdier, I still think, here than it would be in America. America is it because it's so expensive, or I don't know?
It's hard to say. I think it's club to club. You know, I think some clubs, for some reason, maybe because they cater towards maybe stag do's or hen do's or big parties, because I know that kind of, like, a lot of that deters it. Maybe that is. I don't know. It's so weird, because I know stag do's can get rowdy, but not every stag do is like that. You know, not every hen do is bad.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. You guys have a lot more of a group atmosphere at the comedy show. So I was up in Edinburgh, and we had a group of 16 of them. They were 8 couples, and they were older. They were in their 50s or 60s, and every year they take a trip together. And they decided to go to Edinburgh, and they decided to come to a comedy show. And if it's me and 3 other friends, we can't fucking decide on what place to go for dinner. You know what I mean? And these are 16 people that, I don't know if one person picks, we didn't get the details, but they just all go. 16 people, one of them doesn't like comedy, at least. One of them doesn't want to go, but they just do that. And maybe that's what it is. It's more of a group atmosphere, which might cause people to talk a bit more, I guess. I don't know. That's what I'm kind of thinking.
No, I just think the whole idea of the people who don't want to go, I think that probably happens more in this country than any other country. I don't know why. I just can't see people in North America dragging someone who didn't want to go. Whereas in this country, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Remember after the pandemic, we just saw nothing but lovely audiences because they all wanted to be there. Yeah. And then probably about 4 months in, I walked out on stage and saw some bloke sat in the front row looking pissed off, thinking, he's back. He's back. He's been dragged in by his partner. Doesn't want to be there. I'm not going to smile the whole way through.
Yeah. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. And once again, that's not every show. I've had very nice shows and very bad shows. You know, it's up and down the way it goes. So it's not every time, but that could be a little bit of a factor.
So what about difference between the comedians then? Are we all generally the same?
No. There's a lot more character acts here in the UK. A lot more people playing guitar on stage, or playing an instrument on stage, I should say, because we got a couple of ukuleles too. A lot.
Fuck them.
A lot more variety. In Canada, there's very, very few character acts. I can think of 2 character acts that actually walk on stage in a character, and a few people play guitar. Yeah, it's they don't have as much variety. Whereas here, I think on a bill, even a booker wants to throw a few more on. But you also got to remember that our club shows are 3 comics, not 4 as it is here, and our road shows are only 2 comics.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, one person does 30, and the other one does an hour.
What? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's completely, because I always think about the New York model when I think of North America, which is 15 minutes for the headliner and short shows that only last about an hour and 15 or an hour and a half.
Yeah. So we're talking like a road show. We're talking you and I get in a car and we drive 4 or 5 hours to some town. That's going to be one person doing 30, one person doing an hour. No break.
Wow.
No break.
No break. No.
No escape.
So I take it they're in bars where the bar's always open while the acts are on, so people can go and get drinks. And
sometimes, you have table service. You have the waitresses come around. Yeah, and it's weird. Every now and then, it's like in the corner of a bar where there's still people in like the rest of the bar doing stuff too. There's been some rough ones, and then sometimes like the entire town shows up and it's a lovely show and they're ready for it. You just never know what you're going to get.
Do you prefer the British setup or the Canadian setup?
I prefer the British setup because it's a lot more. I mean, you can't double up in Canada because of that, right? So you can do a lot more shows here. It's not as much driving. It's not as much travel because it's a smaller country, of course. You have double the population of Canada in the size of one of our provinces, 1/10 of the size. I'd say probably even smaller than that.
Yeah.
But the only thing that was pointed out to me that you do miss is that to become a headliner in Canada, you need to have 45 minutes. So I've only found this to be a lot worse since we've come out of lockdown. And I hate to say TikTokers, but you do have quite a few people who got famous online that can throw together 20 minutes and call themselves the headliner on the show. Whereas in Canada, it would take a long time for that person, even if they were famous online, to build up that 45 and be a proper headliner.
I mean, you said you haven't been back for 10 years, but I suspect that a similar thing is happening in Canada and America. I mean, the social media thing has been a game changer, I think. Hasn't it?
Definitely a difference between the social media comedians and the old school.
Old school.
But do you think, just generally comedians are the same the whole world over?
We are the world.
Yeah, I think so. I think that like we all have the same problems. I think that we're all going to have that crazy story. I think that like all that stuff is the same. You know what I mean? Like, and even though we, if we want to say these TikToker comics, they're going to run into some rough times. They're going to have to be put through the ringer. And they're still going to have to like almost pay their dues, but in the opposite way, a much nicer way than we probably had to. But they're going to run into trouble.
Yeah, they'll have road stories about, God, Jesus Christ, do you remember that terrible trip I took to the kitchen? Fuck me, bad times. It was terrible. I was delayed. There's a famous story. It's about the fact that they had a TikToker at the Comedy Store and he filmed a video there, and that video got more likes and views than the whole output of the Comedy Store's online content for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boom! Which, it's an indication of where we're at, really. But
because one of the things about learning how to be a stand-up is learning how to deal with hecklers, which some comics really dislike and don't want to learn how to deal with it. Or, we did a previous episode on the heckle put-downs, the generic ones.
Yeah.
But you've actually got in Edinburgh, you've turned it into the whole point of one of your shows.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Steve would know. So basically how it works, Steve, is I have a late night show in Edinburgh every year since 2015.
Wow.
And what it is that it's organized chaos. So the comics come up, you just do your set, and I hand out paddles to the audience. And when they want to heckle you, they have to raise a paddle first, and then they heckle you, and then you come back with your retort or not, like that. So basically what happened to me one day is that I guess it must have been 2014, is I was doing this really late show. And like we're talking, I think it started at 12:30 at night at the Three Sisters, which is notoriously like a terrible, rough place.
Oh,
However, on the weekends it would be rough, but during the week they were actually like lethargic. They were really quiet, and it was like, who the hell is there at 12:30 at night and just like dead? I don't go home and go to sleep, but it was a very strange crowd, like on a Wednesday night there. So I'm on stage, and this guy comes in during my set, drunk, and then he starts to ask questions that he missed previously. You know, when someone comes in the middle and doesn't know what's going on, and I actually turned on him too hard. I went too fast. And I was just like, well, you don't fucking come in the middle of a set and ask a bunch of fucking questions. Maybe if you came on time, you'd be up to date. I can't stop the show. I got really angry, like went too far with him. And then he went, oh, I'm really sorry, but I'm drunk right now. And I'm like, well, it's 1 a.m. on a Wednesday. Of course you're drunk. Like if you're at a comedy show, who goes sober? You know what I mean? Who's finishing their library shift at 1 a.m. and going to a comedy show on a Wednesday night? So the crowd turned around and they were all laughing, and I said, you know what? I completely apologize. If now is not the time to heckle a comedian, when is? And I said, just fire them off at me, and they just started heckling me. And everyone like was laughing, and everyone got into it. And I got this huge round of applause. And I'm like, okay, there's a show there. There's an idea for a show there. And I was actually in the car with Mr. Ricketts after that. And he's the one who said, I need to hand out paddles or something, or people have to put their hand up. There has to be an organization to it. And then ever since then, we've been doing the show.
I mean, so it's you and some other comics as well.
Yeah, me and three. I'm the MC, and I bring 3 comics on.
And the 3 comics rotate every evening. Obviously, the different ones every. Yeah. Wow, it's good idea.
Yeah.
What's it called, by the way?
The Drunken Heckle Show. And you'd be amazed that I call it that, and some people don't get it.
Well, you're probably going to get. What about sober hecklers? Come on, you're discriminating against sober hecklers.
Yeah. We had this one lady come in, and she said, "I don't want to be mean. Can I be nice?" And I said, "Yeah, you can do what you want." And she just gave everyone compliments, and I tell you that threw the comedians off more than anything.
That's funny. You're doing rather well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were going to reflect reality, of course, you should have called it something like the Coked Up Heckler Show.
Yeah.
Because that plays a huge role in most heckling nowadays, doesn't it? The false sense of confidence and the fact that some of them won't stop, after they've been put down about 10 times, they're still going.
Yeah.
Have you ever, I mean, in all the time you've been doing it, has it ever descended into, violence or, nastiness?
No. It's come close a few times. There has been times, and there's also been times where I think I could have pushed it to violence. So I've come to a point of like, okay, pull back. You know what I mean? This is going to go really bad, but it can happen. But it's never been when I've been even in the club. I've never seen it happen to another comedian.
I enjoyed doing it, but I think I heckled the people outside the room.
Yeah. The guy was on the street with a megaphone, and you were out there. Yeah. He was heckling you. Indirectly, he was still heckling you.
But then I heckled him.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, in Edinburgh, it starts at 11:30 at night this year. It's down in Grassmarket. You can't just do Dave Tsonos and Friends. You got to have a theme. You got to have something to bring the people in.
Yeah, and I think it's a great theme, and it's now in its 10th glorious year.
Yeah,
so,
I think probably less because we had to take those 2 off. So I think we're on 8 or 9, I guess it would be, because, for lockdown, I missed those 2. So something like that, though. And we did it in Brighton Fringe, too.
How did it work in Brighton? Because they're so much more politer there.
Yeah, it was weird. So we did this year. We did Thursday, Friday, Saturday. No, sorry, we did Friday, Saturday, Sunday, And Saturday, which was busiest, was weird. I think they were a bit more timid, whereas the smaller crowds were better at it. So I don't know how to, how do you explain that?
I mean, that's just Brighton. I mean,
Yeah.
they're just generally so nice. They're nice people.
You probably couldn't hear the heckles because of the massive hipster beards, could you? But I mean, what's your favourite? Okay, this is we often ask people this, but what's your favourite heckle that you recall, either to yourself or?
Oh God. I think there's two that we've had over the years, and one of them, unfortunately, the crowd didn't get because it's an old reference. So I was emceeing the show, and I had mentioned that my wife was in the crowd. I said, "My wife is here. Give her a round of applause for supporting me." And then the next comedian who came on had a big beard, and she screamed out, "The only bigger beard in this room is the MC's wife."
That's brilliant, heckle.
But unfortunately, that term isn't big right now. So very few people got it. I got it, of course, and the comedian got it, and but a few people just didn't know that used to be a term for somebody. You know what I mean? So it didn't get as big of a laugh as it deserved.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's got layers to it. That act, that's like, all right, okay.
And what's the second one then?
The second one was pretty good too. It was a woman. It was at the Drunken Heckle Show, and the woman didn't want. She goes, "Oh, I just want to watch." I go, "Yeah, you can just watch. You could be fine. You can just watch." And then about halfway through the show, she puts the paddle up, and I said, "Yes." And she goes, "Like, is this your job?" And that was good alone. And I said, "Well, no, I don't just host the Drunken Heckle Show. I do other shows, and I do this and that, and I tour around. I really do Drunken Heckle 1 month a year, and it's not even my entire fringe. It's half my fringe usually." And I said, "What do you do for a living?" And she said she sells trampolines.
Oh, wow.
Which is a weird job. And then she said, "Well, they used to be called jumperines until your mama got on one."
Oh,
Ooh.
that is unnecessarily harsh.
And I can't believe I walked into it. I can't believe I didn't clue in or anything. I can't believe.
To be honest, though, Dave, I mean, it's a brilliant heckle. Sounds like she'd been rehearsing that. She
did, but it was weird because she didn't say anything. Like, she must have been sitting there like, okay, I'm going to wait for a really good one. But I also asked what she did for a living, too, right? I walked into it.
Yeah.
So she was prepared, yeah.
Well, I think we've got to the end of this particular episode, and so I'm going to thank you, David, for coming on. I might pop up to Edinburgh in August and do what I normally do and ruin your show. So,
yeah, good luck with it.
My problem is I'm more drunk than the audience most of the time. I do your show. I'm always disappointed with them, saying, "Why aren't you as drunk as me?"
That's right. It's a bit earlier this year, 11:30 this year. I've got an earlier slot, so that's going to be handier this year.
Okay.
At the Beehive and Grass Market.
Get down there, folks.
Yeah. So that was David Tsonos. For those people who are listening to this, I will describe his Bermuda shirt was completely, what's the best word?
Bermuda-ish.
It was
very Bermuda-ish.
Yes, it was indeed. It definitely had a West Indian or windy feel to it. Good time to tell our listeners and our viewers that the full-length version of the theme tune is in production right now. The recording has been done, and now it's just a matter of adding further instruments and lots of other things to make it sound as wonderful as you would expect it to be. And now's a good time to mention that including my dulcet tones, we now have the addition of Steve Gribbin's wonderful, wonderful vocals.
Thank you.
Might even film a video.
Oh my God. Yeah, that'd be good, wouldn't it?
I might do that. Could be something we could do while we're doing our gigs. especially while I'm doing mine. I could, obviously, if I turn up at a gig where there's nobody there, what an opportunity to film the video.
That's a good idea, actually. Yeah. Let's do it.
So if you like this show, like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. If you got any ideas for guests, you got any ideas of what we should do with our lives, apart from do this podcast. If you got no idea, if you're lonely and you just want to talk to someone and you think that we're your friends, even though we're not. But, if you want to do that, just tell us and we'll ignore it. Or we might even reply. Who knows?
You never know.
Asking you random stuff that we want you to do now. It's not even sensible.
Yeah. Spread the word. Spread the word far and wide. Over the whole universe.
And we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.